G'day, Stu here from UAVfutures, and today we're going to be checking out this bad boy right here, and I am so excited to show you guys this. Now this is the new Mi drone from Xiaomi, and it is absolutely fantastic. Now I've got to say, when I first got this, I was thinking there's no way I'm going to have as much fun as I do with some of these bad boys up here on the wall, because I'm used to reviewing racing quads. So when someone spoke to me about reviewing an AP rig, I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. But since going out and flying this thing, this has opened up a totally new world, I guess, to FPV and sort of these quadcopters. I have had an absolute blast. So what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be sticking on the bench, we're going to be talking about it, sort of tearing it down, having a look at it, and then most importantly, I'll be showing you some flight footage and talking about how I found flying this thing. And I think it's going to be a really interesting perspective too, because I know a lot of people come from these and then they talk about getting into FPV racing, but this is going to be interesting because this is my experience coming from only knowing these machines up here to something that sort of flies itself. So it was really strange, but I had an absolute blast mucking around with this thing, so it was an awesome day out filming. Anyway, enough rambling, let's stick it on the bench and have a look. Something very quickly I just want to mention as well, I had to use the Chinese app for this bad boy because the English one isn't released yet, so some of the wording might be a little bit more difficult. Anyway, we'll do that when we get to it. Let's get started. Alright, so very quickly we'll just have a bit of an overview of what we're going to be looking at, and I've never had to zoom out this far actually because it is quite large. We're going to be looking at the drone itself, and then we'll have a quick look at this little special battery we've got here. Then we're going to be looking at the controller, and then also this really impressive gimbal. There's a ton of other things as well, which I'll talk about throughout the video, but things like the prop guards and the chargers, and basically all those little extras that come with it, but these are the main points we're going to be covering. Anyway, let's jump right in and let's talk about the drone itself. Alrighty, now the drone itself is coming in at about, from motor to motor, now to get this little tape measure out here, it's coming in at about 44 centimeters or 45 centimeters from motor to motor. So not too big, and a real good feature about this one's size is apparently, this is what Xiaomi is claiming, that you can just sort of stick this in a backpack. So if you're going to slide it downwards, you can actually slide this inside a backpack. Look, it's going to have to be a fairly big bag, but I definitely can see it being able to fit in because of its nice slim profile if you get a bag that is wide enough. Now the motors it's spinning, it's rocking some 2212 800 kV motors, and that 800 kV means it's going to be spinning at a lot slower sort of rate, but spinning some larger props, so it's going to be really efficient and it gets some fantastic flight times, and that's because it's rocking these bad boys. Now these are some 10-inch 1046 props right there, so some fairly big props, but they spin fairly slowly as well, so we're getting some really good flight times and still a lot of lift. Righty, and when you get it, it's going to be packed flat, and the legs are so easy to open. All you have to do is just bend them down and you hear them lock into place. So there's one and there's two, so that is how easy it is to put out its legs. Sliding in the battery, and we'll talk about the battery in a little bit, is just as easy. All you have to do is simply slide that in, and it's only going to go in one way. If you try to, which is fantastic, if you try to put it in the wrong way, it's not actually going to go in there, so I really like that design. But you simply slide it in, boom, it is locked in. And also just one thing I want to point out is just how easy it is to get the battery out. So there we go, super easy to slide the battery in and out, but it's locked in place when it is in there. You'll notice on the arms just here, you've actually got two different colored arms, and everything about this quadcopter is pretty much set up, so it is so easy to fly. And I think that's a good thing, but also a little bit of a bad thing, which I'll talk about towards the end of the video. But here we've got, so obviously you put your orange props on these arms, and these ones just here with the little silver mark. That's where your silver props will go. And then on the underside of the quad, and I really like this feature, look, there's two lights at the quad just here, but at the back, when you're actually flying, these are the two that you see, and they just flash. I think it's red and green, or possibly red and green. I'm not exactly sure which one is which, but when they're flying around, it's nice that only the back ones are flashing. I really think that helps with orientation. And then on the bottom right here, we've got a little bit of a sonar and also some cameras, one camera I should just say, because that makes it super easy for doing its auto landing and auto takeoffs. And then this little section here, this is where you put your gimbal in. So you just slide this back and that will pop open, and then all you have to do, it's super easy, and we'll talk about this gimbal as well, to attach your gimbal. It's a little bit, let's get this around the right way, and I think all you have to do is press down. Let's see how well that works. Oh, there we go, and locked in place. So that's how easy it is to pretty much set up your quadcopter. Let's flip it over and I'll talk about the props, so why it's like this. We should just get it set up actually. So all you have to do to put the props on is simply match up the correct color, and they're only going to spin on one way. And this felt so bizarre for me. Hopefully I'm spinning, it spins this way. This felt so bizarre for me because I'm used to putting lock nuts or tightening things down with a ratchet or a spanner or something like that in my racing quads, but that is it. All you have to do is screw them down. I was a little bit worried about them spinning off in flight when I took it for its maiden today, but I gotta say, no problems at all. So pretty amazing stuff just here, spinning. All you have to do is simply firmly spin those props down and they are good to go. And for some of you guys out there, if you're wondering how much does the quad itself weigh, let's put this on here. Now this is about the gimbal, props or battery. Let's make sure I get it around the right way. It is coming in at 700 grams or 702 grams. I don't know if you can see that right here, but 702 grams. Alrighty, so let's break it down a little bit further and we'll have a look at this battery here. Now I'm pretty impressed with this battery. This is I think it's 5,100 milliamp hour battery. But why this is impressive is because this is a 4S LiPo, but it is actually a high voltage LiPo. And I know when, in terms of my racing quads, when I'm using high voltage LiPos, it makes such a difference. You get so much more power when using a high voltage compared to a standard LiPo. So a really, really smart choice I think they've gone with putting in the Mi drone, making sure that it has a high voltage. If you put the little, this is a little feature that I do like, when you turn it on just here, if you just click the little button, you can actually see what charge level it's at, because I haven't completely finished this one, so it's still got a little bit of charge in there. You can see those two little flashing lights in there. Well, I think you can. You can see those two little flashing lights just there will tell you how much charge it has. Another neat little feature as well as locking into place, you can see it's got these two little parts here. It's actually got ports on both sides, so if anything happened to if anything did go wrong when it's plugged into the internals of the quadcopter, it is powering itself through both of these sides right here. So I really like that sort of extra safety feature they've got, that it's not going to just drop out of the sky. Now with one of these batteries, the claim is you can get to up to 27 minutes of just flight time, so I think that is really impressive for such a small condensed little battery right here. And one thing I did like, it comes with its own charger, so let's talk about that charger as well while we've got the battery out. Right here, so here is the charger, and all it simply does, you simply plug it in, use whatever adapter you've got here, plug it into your power point, and then you stick it straight on here. So you don't have to muck around with anything, and it actually gives you a little counter and shows you how full your battery is while it's charging. Something I did like, and I thought was a really smart idea, you can't plug this in backwards. So inside here, you'll notice there's these two little prongs, and they're on one side of the plug. So they're not in the middle, because I was worried about putting which end was which when plugging it into the battery. But as you can see, it's only going to go in one way, because if you plug it in this side, it's not going to line up correctly with the ports. But if you plugged it in this way, it would be good to go. So then all I'd have to do, you just plug it in and it would automatically start charging. And it doesn't matter if you plug it in this side or this side, it is just good to go. You pretty much plug it in and it will do it all on its own. And the charging time when you're charging off this charger right here, I found mine to be about 3.5 hours, from a dead battery all the way up to a fully charged one. Rightio, so now onto the star of the show, and this is the camera and the gimbal sort of system that clips onto the bottom of the Mi drone. And this right here is what converted me to this drone. It is so precise and so accurate when filming. I am totally blown away. Now this comes in two versions. There's a 4K version and a 1080p. I've only got the 1080p version, but I would love to see what the 4K looks like, because I think people are going to be getting some fantastic footage. It's really easy to connect, like I showed you guys before. All you have to do is simply take off that little port that's on the bottom and clip it in. It takes about 1 second to connect, and it's got some little vibration dampeners just here, so it's not going to get any jello from the quadcopter. And as it's moving around, the movements on here are so precise. So I flew mine in some extremely windy conditions, and I'll show you some footage of that. And you can see the trees in the background are going berserk or bananas, but this thing was rock solid. It didn't jump around at all, so I was blown away, I guess, with how good this footage looked. On the back here, you can see that it has a space for an SD card, which you can simply slide, a micro SD card, I should say. So you can put your micro SD card in just here, and you've also got a little USB port. So this is a micro USB that plugs in the back, and I don't know if that's for firmware or if you can actually read off your SD card right here. I'm not too sure on which one this USB port's for. One feature I really did like of this is when I was filming, you get two files saved onto your SD card. So you actually get, whether it be your 4K or your 1080p, whatever it is, but you also get like a thumbnail version as well. So it was really good to see when you open up your video card. I was a little bit confused at the start, but it was really cool to see that you get your, I guess, your main footage file and also a little sort of preview file to show you what each one is about. And then one other thing I want to talk about with just how it connects. Now, I don't know if this is a feature or this is how it's been designed, but this is just my experience with it. I tried to do a bit of a manual landing today, and it was on the bit of a side of a hill, and it didn't go too well. Look, it didn't go badly, it just toppled over a little bit. But the gimbal just popped off. So I think that is a much better design than if this was sort of stretching or you snapping off some of the plastics or the joints. So all it did was simply come off, I guess, in the sort of shallow roll that it had. So I really, really like that, because the last thing you want to be doing is damaging this thing, and sort of you don't want this thing to be taking a heavy impact at all. Alrighty, so now let's move on and talk about the controller that you use with the Mi drone. And the first thing I've got to say is this reminds me of an Xbox remote. It fits your hands, or my hands anyway. I think I've got just standard size hands. It fits my hands perfectly, where you can still access all the buttons and have all control. It is a lot smaller than what I'm used to, because I'm used to flying with one of these when I use my racing quads. Now this is the Tyrannus, so it is significantly smaller flying on one of these. But I think this is great. The size right here, I think this is a much more comfortable sort of setting that a lot more people will be familiar with. Just looking at the controls, so you've got your two sticks just here. So this one is all about your throttle and your yaw, and also on this side, this one is for your pitch and your roll. And something that took me a little bit to get used to is how both of these sticks are centered or on springs, because on this radio, you can see just here, the throttle doesn't jump up and down, and definitely doesn't just sit in the middle, whereas this one does. And that is made because simply when you're flying, as soon as you let go of the sticks, they're going to both spring to the middle, and the quad is going to stay exactly where you left it, which is a fantastic feature, I guess, in a filming rig, so you can put it up in the sky and then just leave it there until you want to move it. To turn on the quad, it's really, really easy actually. I'll go through the buttons, what we've got. So you've got a little lanyard just here, and that's obviously to connect it so you don't drop it on the ground. You've got an on switch, so all you have to do is one short press, I think tells you how much battery it is, and then a short press and a long press turns the remote on. And then you've got over here, this is the auto takeoff button, so a short presser, and a long press. That's going to make the quadcopter auto takeoff and then just sort of hover about 4 meters in the air. On the top just here, and I really like this is the little return to home switch, and I'll talk about this a little bit in the flight footage, because I actually pushed this button. I was a little bit worried, but I got to say it worked flawlessly. What you do, you just slide this across like that, and that's going to automatically bring the quadcopter back and land it wherever you took off from. And I think it's great that it's a switch, so you can look down, because I think if this was a button, you might not be sure if you'd pressed your return to home switch or not, but because it's a slider, you can easily see what's going on, so see if it's activated or not. On the top, you've got your two antennas right here. And these both run on 2.4, and they're for control and also for your video. So that's where you're going to be getting your FPV feed from. At the top, speaking of that FPV feed, you've got this little part just here. So I'm just going to put my antennas out flat. You've got this little part just here. Now this is to hold your sort of tablet or your phone that you're going to be using, whether it be an iPhone or a little Android sort of device or a little tablet. But something I did notice, I was flying around, I just wish it was a little bit bigger, because if you wanted to fly, I guess, with an iPad mini or something, it was a little bit difficult to fit in here. So that's something to keep in mind, is the size of this. The maximum size that this thing can extend, let's have a look just here. So you probably wouldn't really be fitting anything in that is bigger than, I guess, more than 70 millimeters. So that's something you connect. Its maximum stretch, it's about 70 millimeters. On the back, you can see right here, these are two buttons. You've got button A and button A and button B. Button B is for filming, and button A, that is for taking photographs. So that toggles your recording on and off, and that takes a snapshot of whatever you're looking at. I really wish they put a little camera symbol on here. So rather than the buttons, I like how button B has a bit of a dimple, so you can feel the difference between button A. But I really wish that that was a little sort of video recorder, and that one had a picture of a camera. I think that would make a big difference. And then keeping it super simple, on the side you have two other buttons. So this one, just all buttons, I guess, sliders you should say. This one right here, you can move this button back and forth, this slider right here, and that adjusts the pitch on your gimbal. So that will help you determine, I guess that's that axis there for anybody interested. So that's sort of the angle that you'll be filming at. And then this is what I really liked as well, and I wish I had experimented with this more. This actually adjusts the light exposure, so you can set it till it's just right. So if you're flying into the sun, you can really change it to when you're coming back. You can really adjust that light exposure just there, or that white balance. So I think that's fantastic that they're both on such easy sort of switches right here. On the underside of the controller, you have two little options. So let's see if I can pop that open. Rightio, so hopefully you guys can see this and it stays in focus. It's going to be difficult. I'll have to, there we go. So we have two ports right here. This middle port, I don't think that's for anything. That's probably for something from the factory. And you have a USB port, which you use to tether to your Android or your iOS device. And then in the middle here, this is just a micro USB port, which is used for charging. So this is the one you hook up when you want to put your tablet on the front up the top, so you can start looking at the FPV stuff. Alrighty-o, and speaking of the FPV feed, what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to log into the app and I'm going to have a bit of a play around and show you guys what it's like, but be warned, it is in Chinese, so it is not the English app, so it's just going to be a very brief overview, and I will have a better look at the app when the official English one actually launches. Anyway, let's cut to that. Rightio, so I've got the app just here, and look, I don't know what the name of it is. I think there might be an English version for Android, and that is called like Me UAV or UAV space Me, one of the others. I'm pretty sure this is just saying checking for firmware or something like that, or checking for a tether. Alrighty, so we'll wait till this loads up. Okay, so that's going to say open tethering and yada yada yada, which we're not going to actually do. Rightio, so the app's opened up, and this is the main setting. This is the main sort of page you'll see when you're actually flying. Now, there's nothing on the screen here because I don't have my Mi drone plugged in, but I just wanted to go through some of the features of the app. Okay, so up here, and this is probably the most useful part, this is where a bar for your battery will actually appear. So this is how much percentage of battery, and also gives you an estimated flight time. Down here, you've got your GPS strength. Over here, this is how high you actually are, and this is your distance from home. Over here, this is just your setting buttons. Oh, there we go, someone's liking some Instagram stuff. So over here, we've got, go away, Instagram. Over here, we've got some little settings. Now, this is the option that you press to get into your settings menu. I'm not going to go through all these because I'm not 100% sure what is what just here. This is, what is this one? This one right here, that is jump to your location, and this one right here, I believe that is for plotting points, but I haven't experimented with that too much because I want to get the English app first. And if you push this button over this side, this jumps between the map view and also the FPV view. So on the FPV view, you can see right here, you've got it's grayed out at the moment because my drone is turned off, but you have the option to start recording or take a picture. Now, to use this app, what you actually need to do is to first log in to the Xiaomi sort of servers and connect up through that way. Once you've logged in once, though, it lets you use this in sort of an offline mode. And it's also worth noting that there is what is called a restriction or a beginner mode when you first log in. And you actually, currently, in the way it's set up, you need to log up to 300 hours of in-flight time before it will take some restrictions off. But we'll talk about those as well. But enough rambling about all this sort of stuff, Stuart. Let's jump in and let's look at some flight footage, and let's have a look at some of those experiences of this thing taking off and getting some footage and some of those things. All right, so let's cut to that in 3, 2, 1. Boop. Rightio, so here it is up and flying, and I just want to stress this is the first time with flying an AP rig, so definitely don't be criticizing my aerial cinematography there. So let's hopefully we're not judging that. I just want to talk about its features and how it was, and this is actually its maiden flight as well. And this day when I took it out, it was super windy, so it is absolutely ridiculously windy. So I thought it handled some things amazingly. Now, I think this is a bit of a testament to how good the gimbal is right here, because you can see in those trees there, the palm trees and also those other bushes right there, they're getting absolutely thrashed and smashed by the wind, and this gimbal is just rock steady. So totally, I can't stress again how much I am blown away with just how steady and stable that footage looks, even when it's really windy. Now, some of the great features this drone has, and look, I couldn't test them out because I only had the Chinese app and I wasn't 100% sure what I was doing, so I don't want to be plotting strange courses. But you can set up waypoints on this quad, so I know it can fly from specific point to point, which I think is great. And one of the other cool features, you can also set a point and then also adjust your altitude, and it will just do like a circle, a big radius or a big circle around what you want to film, and it'll keep that sort of as a center focus point. So I think that's a really cool feature that I can't wait to test once I get the English app. Now, something that actually did take a bit of getting used to, or felt really, really strange, was the fact that this thing flies for close to half an hour. Look, coming from racing quads, when I'm flying around, I get between like 2 and 7 minutes, depending on what I'm doing and where I'm flying. But having close to half an hour felt totally alien. So that was really bizarre. Just knowing you could put it up in the air and leave it there, and it was just going to sort of take care of itself. So that was pretty awesome. Now right here, I'm pushing the auto takeoff button, and I got to say that was fine. It hovered up to about 4 meters, so that was very simple. I'm probably going to use that every time I go to take off. I did like how once it was flying, it just sort of sat there. It did exactly what you want, and I felt like I had a lot of confidence in the thing, and that was actually a little bit unnerving coming from someone who's used to having full control all the time. It was actually kind of crazy just to think that this thing is just flying itself, and I was barely touching the controls. Now this quad does have restrictions, which means for like the first 300 minutes it is sort of stuck to beginner mode, and I did find the controls, I guess, a little bit more docile and definitely toned back than what I'm used to anyway, and it didn't seem very fast at all, so for me that felt a little bit frustrating, but I definitely think it's a good idea having some restrictions on here because it really teaches people how to use the quad safely and sort of avoid accidents and flyaways and things like that. Here you can see me adjusting the tilt manually, and that was really easy. The slider was really sensitive, I guess, or it had a lot of resolution in there, so I find sort of those nice finicky small movements actually quite easy to do. But overall, and look, I'm shocked that I'm feeling this way, coming from, I guess, the racing quad scene, moving to a photography sort of experience, but I'm totally blown away at how good this thing was. I wasn't expecting it to be quite this amazing, so I've got to say, my hat's off, guys. You've done a fantastic job developing this. I think it is an absolute brilliant piece of machinery you've got here. It was just so easy to, I guess, to film and get those good shots. I felt like I could go out and make some really cool movies with this thing. I've got a little clip here of pushing the return to home button, and I think that's really important, so I'm going to roll that. All right, so I'm about to hit return to home. Let's see what happens. It's doing well. Starting to pour down rain. Well, that's not too bad. Alrighty, now how's it disarm? Oh, by itself. Can you hold that controller? Sure. We should probably turn it off because it's raining. Rightio, so there it is, and I'm going to be dead honest here. I was ready to blast this thing when I got it. Like, I was excited to try it, but I guess there's a little bit of prejudice against sort of some aerial photography rigs and stuff because they seem to be crashing all the time, and they're the ones in the news, and I guess how they fly themselves, I guess I didn't really trust them so much, and coming, I guess, from a racing quad sort of standpoint, I just wasn't sure how I would feel about it. But I got to say, this thing, it's totally converted how I feel about it. So I absolutely love it, and I think I found another thing I can really love in this hobby. So this thing is going to get some great shots. I can't wait to get out there and actually do some really cool filming. One of the things I would like to change, I wish in the controller here somewhere, as well as powering your FPV feed, there was also an option for someone just to put in some goggles or another, like a video out, and easier like a HDMI out or something. I think that would be great. But I guess in terms of just a quadcopter for doing some filming, it does a sensational job. And for such an amazing price, I'm really blown away at the price of one of these compared to some of the other things out there on the market. Now, I guess the big point a lot of people are going to talk about is what's up with the 300-minute sort of mark in terms of getting off that beginner mode. Because once you get off that beginner mode, you can move around a lot faster and do a few, I guess, different sort of maneuvers and a bit quicker. But I think that's a good thing because the reason why I didn't like these is because you would hear stories of people crashing them who didn't know how to fly them or didn't understand their machine and didn't know what they could really do with it. And because this thing is so easy to fly, it's really easy to just put your trust up there so instantaneously and not really understand that these things get so dangerous and they can cause so much damage. So I'm really, really glad that that sort of 300-minute mark is in there. That's only 10 batteries, and I'm sure if you're going to buy one of these, getting 10 batteries is going to be getting through 10 batteries. You're going to do that quite easily, and you're going to learn a lot in that process. So I know, look, this might be an unpopular opinion out there, but I'm really grateful that that 300-minute mark is there because, look, I think I'm a pretty good pilot with flying some of these things, but when it came to this, I still had a ton of learning to do. So I'm really grateful that that's in there, and that's going to force those pilots to put the time on the craft so they can learn about it, and hopefully that'll reduce the mistakes and save people getting injured, save that bad media, and also teach people how to get better footage as well. Right, and something a lot of people are going to be saying that, okay, Stuart, how does it stack up to the Phantom 4? And I've got to say, I do think the Phantom 4 is a better quadcopter, but this thing is so much cheaper. So yeah, the Phantom 4, it has some really cool things like the obstacle avoidance. It has that sort of follow me feature where it can track a target. But this thing, for its price, it's fantastic. It's got that waypoint mode. It's got that one where it can sort of pick an object and spin around it while it's filming as well. So I think for the price, DJI is going to be freaking out with just what this quadcopter can do for the price that it's being offered at. So it's going to open up the market to a whole bunch more people out there who really want to get into, I guess, filming or aerial photography. So at this price, so many people are going to be able to experience the hobby and do something that they can enjoy because maybe the Phantom 4 was out of their price range. It sort of reminds me a little bit when Xiaomi, I guess, released, this is the Xiaomi action camera, and GoPro, look, GoPro makes fantastic cameras, but they were really expensive. They were like $400, and then these came out for about $100. So they got like 90% of the features, 85% of the features for like 25% of the price. So I really feel like that's kind of what's happening here. This is definitely not the best filming quad on the market. I think the Phantom 4 still beats it, but for the price, I'm going to say this thing is unbeatable. An absolute convert. I'm having so much fun with it. Anyway, that's my review of the Mi drone from Xiaomi. And if you're new to this channel and you're coming over, I guess, from a photography sort of standpoint, definitely stick around because we've got some really cool things, especially if you're into racing drones and some other sort of FPV related content. Anyway, subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying!